the Trinity Bridge. This bridge was constructed in 1902. It was a kind of a present to the city for 5 years. There was a competition for the best project, and one French company won the competition. The bridge and actually the lamps and the railings, they were cast in France at the same factory as the Eiffel Tower. And the company was actually the same. So that's why sometimes we call this bridge the small brother of the Eiffel Tower. If you look to your left in the distance, you can see the trees of the summer garden. Peter the Great didn't love for, well, big palaces. What he loved was the space. He loved water, space, and he loved with a brilliant fence that faces Neva River, one of the exquisite works of art. Beautiful palace embankment with many palaces. It is called the Marble Palace because the two upper stories are a gift from Catherine the Great to Alexander Suvorov looks as the Roman warrior. He's dressed like a Roman warrior. This person, Alexander Suvorov, was the most famous general field marshal in the history of Russia. He is famous for the fact that he had never lost a battle, not in many battles. Finally, he was rewarded with the highest possible title in the Russian army, Generalissimus. We had very few generalissimus. And Stalin, during the Second World War, Stalin also got the same title, Generalissimus. So we pass now the monument to, and during the Second World War, when the city was bombarded and most monuments were sandbagged or covered somehow with sand or just. And to your right you can see one more little park which is called the Field of Mars. In the center you can see the monument pyre in memory of these victims. The area changed. The victims of the street clashes were buried there and the park was laid out around. One more interesting thing, interesting place ahead of it. It is called Michael's Castle. It was called a castle because originally, and now some canals were filled. This Michael's Castle was built for Russian Emperor Paul I. He was the only son of Catherine II, Catherine the Great, who lived in the 18th century. This throne, finally. When he ascended the throne, he was always afraid of assassination. This castle, he lived there only for about, exactly. His god, who he believed was loyal to him, wasn't actually. His god killed him. They didn't like his politics. So, young engineers, it was called engineering school, and now it's a museum. Ahead of you, you can see the nice reddish church of St. The embankment right near the restaurant. It's very difficult. Petersburg, the main one, which was founded in the 19th century by Italian Ciniselli. It was Italian circus. And now St. Petersburg State Circus, where we take the kids very often. And you may recognize the area because yesterday we went in the store. To the restaurant, to the Chinese restaurant, and the church that you will see in a minute is the church of Saint Simeon and Saint Anna, which is Anna. It was built by Zemtsov, a Russian architect who was a student of Domenico Trezzini, the main architect of St. Petersburg at the days of Peter the Great, the one who built Petersburg Cathedral. So it is. And St. Petersburg is not typical to many other European countries. You may see that we have really wide streets, and they were so like many cities when there was first a village, then a bigger settlement. So we turn to one of the main streets, Litany Prospect, which goes from Nevsky, one of the central thoroughfares of St. Petersburg, but not exactly the very heart of the city. And that's why here were not only palaces but also the houses for some common people. So I told you the city was planned. That's why so wide and straight streets, not winding, and all the buildings had to be in one line. It was called Red Line. Here again you see just one back, one forward. No, and there was also the height limit up to the 20th century. The limit was the Winter Palace. The central residence of the Tsar had to be the highest building in the city, and no buildings higher than the cathedral, Smolny Cathedral, which is 48 meters. But nevertheless, in the city center, high buildings are not allowed. Not so long ago, several years ago, there was a scandal because the company, Gazprom, the gas company, the main gas company, the richest company in Russia, wanted to have a 300 meters skyscraper. The whole city center is under the protection of UNESCO, so the year that protects the historical buildings. And we are approaching the Neva River, which is ahead of us. We are going to see one more beautiful cathedral, which is not exactly at the city center. It's Smolny Cathedral. On our way, we are going to see some other interesting buildings, like the main headquarters, the main building, right-hand side, ahead of you, this brown. So to your right, the main headquarters of KGB, which had bad fame in their country. Street which is called Tapestry Street or Shpalerny Street. At the days of Peter the Great, along this street, there were many manufacturers that produced tapestries. Peter the Great loved tapestries, and that's why first he bought them abroad, and then he decided to have the production here in St. Petersburg. Actually, Peter developed so along this street there were also the enemies. Long yellow building to your right. And ahead of you, you can already see the domes of the Smolny Cathedral. It was the idea of Empress Elizabeth, daughter of Peter the Great, who at some moment of her life wanted to become a nun. And she decided unfinished. And then another architect, Stasov, already at the days of Catherine the Great, finished it from inside. The school where the girls were taught some important things like dancing and playing some musical instrument that they needed at the court, but at the same time they were taught literature and mathematics and some other subjects to educate them. Originally the school was in their houses that were built for the nuns, but later another new building was constructed especially for a Smolny school. It was called Smolny Institute. Right now you can see this Smolny Cathedral ahead of you, and you can see St. Petersburg University. And St. Petersburg University, the main one, is a huge